The Dalhousie Union acknowledges that Dalhousie University and the Dalhousie Student Union building are located on unceded, unsurrendered territory of the Mi'kmaq people. The DSU wants to acknowledge that the ongoing impacts of colonization are present on campus and in the Halifax community. This is reflected in a number of ways, including but not limited to the underrepresentation of Indigenous students enrolled in university, ongoing racism faced by Indigenous peoples, the disproportionate number of Indigenous people in the judicial system, the high number of Indigenous children in state care, a chronic lack of basic services available to Indigenous communities, the failure of government to honor treaty rights, and the disproportionate levels of violence faced by Indigenous women. The Dalhousie Student Union recognizes and respects the Mi'kmaq people as the traditional keepers of this land with valuable coded knowledge regarding its use and value, and seeks to honor the relational treaty process in its programming and events and meetings. Now we're going to start with a opening ceremony by Jerry Musqua LeBlanc.
I'm going to do a smudge of the room, and what we use for smudging is tobacco and cedar. I don't have cedar, but I have tobacco, sweetgrass, and sage. The purpose of smudging the room is to get rid of the negativity in the room. So they're called bad spirits. These often do person smudges so that we cleanse ourselves spiritually and first. There may be some reaction to smoke. I'm not sure, but I never had a reaction. I've never known anyone with this reaction to smudging, but if there is, we'll certainly take out. We can't, once the smudge is lit, we can't put it out. It's going to burn up by itself. So, with your permission, I'm going to make a smudge, and then I'm going to smudge you. Are there any incentives in the room? Is there anyone who's concerned? The reason I have asked Aaron to do this for me is elders typically have helpers, young people that help do these things for us. I guess it's one of the perks of being an elder. While Aaron is smudging the room, I want to say an opening prayer. So could I ask you to stand, please? Great Spirit and good Creator of all things, we honor you with this prayer. We are the descendants of the people you so long ago chose to live in harmony on Turtle Island. We acknowledge your gifts of life and knowledge. We pray that your wisdom would dwell in this room so that those who so humbly work for the good of the people will find the answers they seek. We pray for unity that would surpass our own understanding. We pray for our Mother Earth so that she may recover from the many sores we have inflicted upon her. We pray for our nations, our communities, our elders, and our medicine people, all my relations. What I'm going to do now is, thank you, Aaron, is ask Aaron to perform the honor song. And at this point, all the males in the room should remove their headgear. This is the Mi'kmaq honor song. Their hats, not anything else.
Odasi don pejdayo ola mawiomi duwewem na kidabiyan hunue. I'd like to thank you all for being here and listening, and I'd like to recognize that this song was made by an elder from New Brunswick, Mi'kmaq elder. His name is George Paul, who made this song when he was in a sweat. It came to him in a vision. And he was told in his vision to bring this to the Mi'kmaq people. This was back in the 80s, and ever since this has been adopted as the Mi'kmaq honor song.
Thank you both so much. We're honored by that. Thank you. Okay, so if you're collecting food, please feel free to continue to do so, but please also try and keep noise from the back of the room to a minimum. Roll call, I'm declaring that we do have quorum. Quorum is 75, and we have that now. I'm going to start with a few remarks for myself. First of all, we're going to be voting by hands. You don't have to vote on everything, but we will not be counting abstentions. Always please name yourself whenever you take the floor to speak on something, whether that's for a point of order or for speaking or moving something, so we can get your name. I'm going to have a speakers list at various times, and if you want to be put on the speakers list, just raise your hand and try and make yourself seen by me, and I will put your name down. Yeah.
Just ask if anyone's missing a voting card to go get one.
And if you're missing a voting card, please do get one from the front there. And I guess the only thing I'd other ask is just to remember to have respect for other people in the room here, and also to only speak when recognized, so we can have some decorum. So first off, adoption of the agenda. Be it resolved, the agenda be adopted as circulated. Are there any, do I have a mover for the agenda first? Yeah. I just need a mover first. Yeah, sorry, what was your name? Corey? Okay. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Dylan Ryan? Okay, and so amendments to the agenda. Okay, and do I have a seconder for that amendment? Caitlin Lowe? Okay, do you want to just briefly explain that, the amendment?
I don't know if everyone's heard, but Brandon University has been in the news lately about silencing sexual assault survivors, and I would just like to discuss it as a court motion to stand in solidarity with sexual assault survivors.
Okay, is there any discussion on that? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote on that amendment to the agenda. We're going to put that on D under new business. All those in favor, please raise your cards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Back to discussion on the agenda. Are there any other amendments to the agenda? Yeah, Dan?
Yes, my name is Dan Nicholson. I just want to move that the executive report be placed after motion served with notice.
Do I have a seconder for that? Bart Soroka? Okay, and do you want to just briefly explain, put it at the end? If you need to explain.
Yeah, so we're just going to report on what happened over the year. It's important, but we also have other important business that is crucial to the operations of the union, so I think it should come first.
Is there any discussion on that? All those in favor? All those opposed? The motion passes. Back to discussion on the agenda. Any other discussion on the agenda? Okay, all those in favor of the agenda as amended, please raise your placards. All those opposed? And the agenda passes. Is there any other, there's another motion potentially to limit speaking time, as expressed before the meeting? Dan, yeah?
Yeah, sure. I move to limit debate to 2 minutes, 3-4-3 again.
3, 4, 3 grants for each motion. Do I have a seconder for that? And sorry, it was Corey? Yeah. Okay. And do you want to just briefly motivate for that, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So there's a lot to cover on this agenda. I think everything that needs to get said by any one person can be done in a 2-minute span of time. It also limits just kind of like rambling and trying to say things appropriate.
Thanks, Dan. And we'll just proceed straight to a vote on that. All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Next up, minutes of the previous meeting. First of all, is there someone that can move the October 23rd, 2014? Rhiannon? Seconder for that? Corey? Okay. Any amendments to the minutes? No? All those in favor of approving the 2014 annual general meeting minutes? All those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. Mover for the 2015 minutes? Caitlin? Do I have a seconder for that? Casey? And are there any amendments to those minutes? All those in favor of those minutes? Please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the minutes pass. So next up, we have motion served with notice. Same thing, there was interest expressed to me about a motion for that before we move to it. Seeing none, okay. Motion to amend the bylaws. Can I get a mover for that, please? Dylan, seconded by Caitlin. Okay, so Dylan, I guess if you could motivate for that, please.
I feel like there'll be lots of discussion, but you guys probably have heard the governance review we've been doing all years. You can find a copy of it at the door there. And then, pretty that stuff, we're moving to make it usually more open with a smaller council, but still seeking fair representation for all bodies.
Thanks, John.
Sorry. So we've been working on this all year. Kaylee spent a lot of time on it. We had a committee. It's gone through council in a few rounds. We think this is the best thing we could put forward to create a council that's more successful and transparent while still engaging all students and keeping our equity seats. I'm sure there'll be lots of discussion on it, but yeah, have a read if you haven't.
Thanks, Dylan. So before we proceed to discussion on the bylaw amendments, there was an amendment sent to me, so we're going to consider that first, dispose of that, and then we'll go back to discussion on the amendments. And that was put forward by Corey. Was that yourself? Okay, do I have a seconder for that? That was circulated. Be resolved that bylaw 9.6.h be amended to read: the Elections Appeals Committee shall, at the request of any candidate in an election or campaign team in an election, review a decision of the Elections Committee to determine if it is in line with the DSU Act bylaws and policies. Deliberations on questions related to any such request shall be held in camera. So that's amendment. Do I have a seconder for that? Kathleen? Okay, so Corey, if you could motivate for that, and could you come up here?
From John. Jonathan.
Okay.
So some motivation. I think this is a great idea for this committee. We had one in my undergrad students union. There was one year when there was a really heated election. And everyone who was on council, they were split, and everyone was running. And there were a lot of appeals sent to this board. And I think if that were to ever happen, the members on this committee should feel as if they can express themselves and be in a safe place. And so the amendment that I made is just the last sign that it's the discussions are held in camera. And I just feel, if that should happen, you should be able to feel that you are in a safe place when you're talking about very controversial subjects.
Thanks, Corey. Okay, is there any other discussion on this amendment? Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment to the bylaws, please raise your placards. All those opposed? So that amendment passes. We're back to discussion on the main motion. I'll start a speakers list. Dan?
Can everyone hear me all right? I'll just use this mic. So Dylan did a pretty good job of summing up most of what the governance review was. Just to clarify, about a year ago, council had mandated that they wanted a full review of our current constitutional bylaws and policies done, and so they mandated that, and we went out and we found a law firm to do a comprehensive sweep of all of our bylaws, go through everything with a fine-tooth comb. They came back to us with hundreds of comments on things that we needed to change, things that weren't up to like best practices or best standards. So that went back to council, and council then created a committee of students to spend the year and look over all of the comments that were put forward by the law firm and create a comprehensive set of bylaws based on what they had suggested were best practices. So that committee was struck. They wrote the bylaws. Then those bylaws went back to the law firm for review of all the bylaws. Those bylaws then came back and went to our council. Our council had a chance to look at them. Our council referred them then to our Board of Operations, who had another opportunity to review all of the changes, make suggestions, edits, ask questions. All of those questions then went out, and edits all then went out back to the committee and back to the law firm for another review. Those reviews were all done. It was brought back to the Board of Operations, where they said, okay, all of our questions are answered, everything looks good to us. The bylaws were then referred back to our council. which would have been a couple of weeks ago, and our council said, okay, this encompasses all of the questions that we had initially asked, and we're okay to refer that to our AGM. So the process in total has been, I think, just over a year, or just under a year in total.
30 seconds. 30 seconds.
30 seconds. Great. So 30 seconds to go through a couple of the huge changes. Totally forgot about the speaking time that I just moved for. So we're limiting our council size. The law firm told us that we should not be appointing any of our own members to our body who can then vote. So we eliminated those, or not eliminated, but redistributed those representatives to committees. We also then redistributed our Senate members to a Senate caucus, because now we have way more senators thanks to our Senate reform. There was a very clear process for petitions, for referendum, so that's a big change. Things are a lot less tricky. There are also, I'm getting the wrap up. Okay, so if you have the documents, look through the documents. I'm hoping someone else can maybe come up here and talk about some of the other larger structural changes. Right.
The bylaws are the pink one.
Point of privilege.
Yeah.
Just where he's explaining what the actual motion is, given the size of this reform, maybe he can finish explaining.
Sure. Could I get a motion from the floor to extend Dan's speaking time? Caitlin, seconded. Aaron, all those in favor? Okay, Dan.
Okay, super quick. There's just a couple. Hello again. A couple of other big things. The Board of Operations. We have now decided that board was not functioning at optimal level or at the efficient level or at the level that it was visioned to function at. Oftentimes, it was only a very small group of students who were making some very high-level decisions. And so we've decided to dissolve that committee or that board and disseminate their responsibilities to multiple different committees. And the committees are all outlined in the bylaws. The second piece of things, the Judicial Board, for those who were familiar, that was a 3-student committee that sometimes we went to them for like a ruling on a challenge, like a challenge call, or like if anything, like if a ruling based on our bylaws was unclear, we would go to them and ask for their opinion, which is not proper practice. They're just law students. They weren't actual lawyers. And part of their main function as the Judicial Board was to handle elections appeals. So what we've done now, we've dissolved the Judicial Board. We have created an Elections Appeals Committee who will be appointed at the very beginning of the year, so as to try and avoid any biases. And any elections appeals would go to this committee of students. And that committee is also, it should be outlined in the bylaws. There will be a law student aspect of it because the committee that was working on the bylaws did find value in having law students be part of that process. And then the other piece of the Judicial Board's work was around that legal opinion thing. And the lawyers that we went to, they said, if you need a legal opinion, go get a legal opinion. Don't try and do a workaround with students because that's not always the most, that's not the most, but that's not the appropriate thing to do. And so that outlines some of the major changes. There were a ton of other changes to make the bylaws more readable. If anybody has ever tried to look through the other bylaws, they're a little confusing, tough to navigate. These are much more comprehensive. They flow a lot better. There's just a massive number of changes, and all that I touched on here were some of the big structural pieces that folks should know about. But the bylaws are available on the pink sheets. Of paper.
Thank you, Dan. I have both Corlin and Bart on the speakers list. Are one of you going to be speaking against? Corlin, are you going to be speaking against the bylaw amendments as a whole? Motion to amend? Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Well, you can just grab the one from John. You need to speak into the mic because of the streets. Yeah.
Okay. Mine's a motion to amend the bylaws 4.1 to read as well as 12 faculty representatives with 1 representative from each of the following societies. Program representatives from any program levied society that wishes to have faculty representation split by program.
Okay, is everyone clear on that?
I could.
Could you just repeat one more time?
Yeah. One more time.
Okay. So it's amendment to the composition in the bylaws of council. So that's 4.1, and it's amendment to add an program representatives from any program levied society that wishes to have faculty representation split.
Okay, thanks, Corlin. And Dan wanted to motion before. He had indicated to me to move the amendments to discuss afterwards. So we're going to discuss the bylaw amendments if the general meeting approves. This is a motion. Do you want to just explain what it is, Dan?
Yeah, sure. So I wanted to motion to approve the bylaw amendments, or the new bylaws in omnibus. And then what this could do, if folks have specific amendments around any specific bylaws or any specific lines in the bylaws, then they can pull those out of the omnibus. We can deal with those very small specific amendments and then place them back in. This way we're not working with the massive document all at once. It should make things a little more smooth, but that doesn't mean that you can't amend anything. You just need to pull out that specific piece.
Do I have a seconder for Dan's? Yeah, Alex. Sorry, Andrew. That's right. And is everyone clear on that? So we'll discuss Corlin's first. That's obviously been pulled out. We'll do that after. We're going to discuss the main amendment. Anyone wants to pull anything out, we can do so. Talk about that amended if desired. But in the meantime, go through the bylaws and approve those or disapprove those as a whole. So I have a seconder for that. All those in favor of putting them in omnibus, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Discussion, we're going to limit discussion for now on the main motion of the bylaws, and then if anyone wants to pull anything out to amendment, they can feel free to do that. Bart, I have next on the speakers list for it as a whole, or if it was to pull something out as an amendment. Yeah, Bart.
Sweet. So my name is Bart Soroka. I'd like to pull section 6, as well as notice that I want to pull section 7 that is now gone, or it might have been the old section 6. So I don't know how to do that in an omnibus situation, but just that is going to be coming up, that I'm going to want to add in a new section.
Okay. So we won't pull it out then, we'll just have that as an amendment.
The section 6, I do need to pull
Okay.
out. The current section 6, or proposed.
Okay. Thanks, Bart. Anyone else want to pull anything out? Yeah. Motion, if anyone wants to make amendments to it, they can pull it out and we'll discuss that after. Yeah. Yeah, we'll take that. Yeah, what you just proposed? Yeah. Emmer. Okay, what section was it? Does anyone know off by hand? Sorry?
4.1H.
4.1H, okay.
It's with it.
Okay, 4.1.
It's already been pulled out.
Okay, seeing no others, we'll proceed back to this. Yeah, Bart?
Sorry, now that I think about it, is this omnibus going to include the second part of the motion?
We'll do that separately. We'll take that as also,
so that's
yeah.
already
Yeah.
pulled? Okay,
Yeah.
Dope.
Yeah, thanks, Bart. Okay, so we'll return to discussion on the main motion, whether to approve or not approve the bylaws. Do I have a speakers list for that? Bart?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, so I don't know if we can really go through and approve everything without talking about the changes that have been proposed, but I think that would have been a discussion for the omnibus, which wasn't discussed. So that's just kind of where I'm at.
Thanks, Bart. Corlin, did you want to?
I'm not sure I understand how we will approve the bylaws without approving all the separate things that we've pulled out, or is it approving everything except what we've pulled out so far?
Exactly. We approve everything except what's been pulled out, and then afterwards we're going to talk about what's been pulled out.
Can I just answer that? It's just to prevent the whole thing from not passing. Yeah.
So will the things that were pulled out be passed individually then?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Right? Yeah.
Anyone else who wants to speak for or against the motion? Corey, did you want to speak for or against the motion?
Point of information. So if we vote on this, when does it come into effect? Does it come
I-
into effect tomorrow at the beginning of the
I think so, Kaylee. I believe so, yeah.
Should come into effect immediately. Right, yeah.
So like composition of the council, if there is a position that no longer exists, they're just
I think that'll happen.
So that won't, yeah, I believe that won't come into effect until like end of April at the very least, at the end of this term.
council switches over May 1st. So.
Should we just be further south of this doesn't take effect until? Yeah. Okay. So
That would be May 1st. That's the next term, yeah. Seeing no other discussion on the main motion, correct me if I'm wrong, we'll move to a vote on the main motion, which is not including what's been pulled out, which is 4.1, and there was another one.
Section 6, I believe.
Section
Was
6.
it, Bart? Section 6 you pulled out?
Yes, Corlin.
Can I also pull up 4.2 eligibility?
Okay. Bart.
Point of privilege.
Yeah, John?
The people that are on or watching the screen can't hear you, no matter how loud you are, unless using microphone. So please use.
Thanks, John. Yeah.
Okay, this is just a point of order.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure an omnibus needs to have separate motions, so I don't think you can omnibus what we've omnibus, because there aren't separate motions. There's one motion. So I just want to make that clear.
Fair enough. You're right. Semantically speaking, omnibus would not be the correct term. I think the point remains what was happened was to divide the question. Make sense? Yes. And say your name, please.
It's Kit. I was just wondering, so if we're pulling out things and we're just passing other parts of this motion, then we're not actually doing an omnibus sort of thing. Because if we're only passing parts of the bylaw in the first vote, then we're not actually passing a bylaw. We're passing parts of a bylaw, and then we're deciding later whether we're passing the other half of the bylaw. or
That would be
other
correct,
parts.
yeah.
So we could theoretically end up with part of a bylaw passed and 3 or more sections that are not passed.
That is correct.
So
In which case,
we would have a non-functioning set of bylaws.
No. The old bylaws would exist in place if they don't pass.
But would they be a coherent set of bylaws without the parts that we pulled out if they were not to be passed?
yeah. Corey? Yeah, sorry, Jeremy, I'm going to go to you first. Do you want to get the microphone, though, Jeremy?
I can talk loud. Is that okay?
No,
No,
you can't hear him.
Just on the topic of omnibus or not, I actually really appreciate the process you're doing, Greg. And I would just ask that the amendments be talked about and the bylaw as a whole be approved at the same time, just to follow the point of process that this is not officially an omnibus.
Okay, so is that a motion to combine everything and just go back to the amendments? Is that?
Yeah.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Sorry, what was your name again? No? Do I have? So this would cancel the omnibus and we would just talk about those amendments individually. Do I have a seconder for that? Yeah, Aaron? So this, to be clear, this is basically ixnaying the omnibus. This is going back and just discussing it. We'll have each of those amendments one by one. All those in favor? Yeah. Yeah, sure. Okay. Dan, did you want to speak to it? And then I'll...
Sorry, really quick, just to clarify. So the omnibus piece of things, the idea is that the pieces that you pull out, when you pull them out, like they will need to be put back in, and a resolution will need to take place today on the floor, like with whatever amendments happen to the pulled out omnibus pieces. So you wouldn't end up with piecemeal bylaws, because like that is like the point of the like omnibus motion in general. So the pieces that get pulled out will need to go back in. Like that's.
So
Yeah,
my
go ahead.
suggestion would be that we vote on the bylaws, this bylaw as a whole, and approve it or not approve it, and then go through the amendments to the bylaw we just approved. And that way we have a full set of bylaws that would go through, and then you can go back and look at each part and amend that as we need to.
Okay, so we've had 1 for and 1 against for this to go back into just discussing the main motion. Corlin, did you want to speak for or against the motion, the incidental motion?
I'd like to speak against voting all in one and then going through the amendments, because if the amendments don't happen, we wouldn't vote to pass it. So why would we vote all in one? I prefer taking them out in omnibus, passing the things that aren't taken out, and then amending them.
Okay, thanks, Corlin. Michael? And we'll cut the speakers list off at this.
Can I speak to my motion?
After Michael?
Okay.
I was going to say, I believe if we vote for and against and we vote against, you cannot make amendments something you've struck down.
No, we can make amendments. They just wouldn't be voted on separately from the whole motion.
Okay, but then the thing is, though, then you're theoretically doing what you had said to begin with, which was go through your amendments and then just vote on it as a whole, instead of, like, you're just doing it the other way around. If you're going to allow for a vote at the end, then why not go through the amendments and then just vote on it as a whole when it's amended? So you're dealing with the final product instead of striking it down and then going through it and then voting again.
Jeremy?
The only reason I made this is because, as was brought up, if we pass the omnibus parts of this bylaw without approving the other pieces, we might actually end up with two Section 7s that overlap or contradict each other, or in this case, two Section 6s, which might overlap or contradict each other. And as was mentioned, this is really just going the other way around and making a single approval at the end, rather than approving parts of this, which you might not support if the rest of it isn't to your satisfaction.
Thanks, Jeremy. Okay, so we'll proceed to a vote. Is it a point of information?
So can we do
Ed, sorry, the microphone.
If we go omnibus, talk about, for example, 4.1, decide that it's not what we want. Because the first line is the current, can you go back up? Sorry? I want to talk about the first be it resolved. The current union bylaws be repealed. So if we were to vote for it, would we not have positions?
And procedurally, I agree. And to be honest, that's I don't want to weigh in on an incidental motion, but at the same time, I think, yeah, like
that would happen, we wouldn't have positions.
The content would be the same, and I think we should just proceed to a vote on this motion, and that's whether to ixnay the omnibus or divide the question and just go back to discussion on the main motion, make amendments as we see fit, as has been proposed. All those in favor of following that course of action, that was Jeremy's motion, please raise your placard. All those opposed? Okay, so the motion does not pass, the motion fails. So we're going to be discussing first the motion as a whole and then the amendments individually. Is there any other discussion on the main motion? Okay, we'll proceed to a vote on the main motion, which is whether or not to approve the bylaws minus the specific amendments that have been pulled out, as well as the composition for 2016, the other part of the motion. All those in favor of passing the bylaws, please. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Do you have that, Kathleen?
I don't.
4.1, Section 6, and there was a last one too.
4.2.
4.2? 6. And there's another one, was there not?
All of Section 6.
Yeah.
All of Section 6.
Okay. All those in favor of the bylaw amendments as proposed, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We'll proceed to discuss the amendments that were pulled out. Yeah. Yes.
Sorry, I wanted to pull out another motion to discuss, but you didn't check in after that long discussion about the omnibuses, which would have been appreciated.
What section was it?
It was the section for the elections policy. I believe it's...
Is there any opposition from the floor for pulling out one more section?
Sorry, I just have to find it.
Section 9?
Section 9, yes.
Is there any opposition to that? Okay, we do have unanimous consent, so we'll do that.
Thank you.
So that's Section 9 as well. And sorry, what was your name? Katie Douglas. Okay, first of all, the amendments. We'll go with Corlin's first. Corlin.
Hold up.
If you could motivate for it again, just so people are clear and explain what it is. Sorry? To motivate, and we're going to be discussing the amendment now, so to motivate as well as to discuss what exactly you're changing.
Okay, so just to remind everyone, my proposed amendment was to add an I, program representatives from any program levied society that wishes to have faculty representation split by program. The reason that I'm proposing this is that a lot of faculties have programs within them that can't be represented by just one person because of the difference in programs and the different stages of their lives. They have very different values. My example comes from management and commerce, but it's just something that I saw as an overarching issue, and if there's a program levied society, they're one that has good standing with the DSU and I think is responsible to have a seat on council as well.
Okay, we'll start discussion on that amendment. Bart.
This is just a point of information. How many more people will be added if every program wants to be represented?
Did you have an answer for that? No? Yeah, Corlin, do you have an answer for that?
Based on a list that I had from Budget Commissioner, so not an official list, I saw that there is 19 levied program societies. However, in terms of which faculties these would impact, it would be Faculty of Architecture and Planning, Graduate Studies, Health Professions, Science, and Management, based on the list that I have, and like levied societies within faculties.
Yes. And sorry, your name again, please.
Sorry, it's Kit Moran. Even though there may only be a 19 more, that would essentially almost double council. That would also allow things like under the Faculty of Engineering, chemical engineering, civil engineering, electrical and computer engineering, environmental engineering, industrial engineering, materials engineering, mechanical engineering, and mining engineering to all become levied societies and then deserve a seat on council. This could become a real disaster really quickly if that were to happen.
Okay, thank you. Did you have a quick clarifying point?
I don't think so because I thought he misunderstood, but then he said to become those because they're not currently levied.
Okay, thank you. Okay, seeing no one else with their placards raised, we'll proceed to a vote on that amendment. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, sorry, I'm going to have to count that individually, guys. Sorry. All those in favor, please raise. Okay, I have 28 in favor. All those opposed, please raise. Okay, the motion fails.
Point of order.
There was no one on the speakers list. I asked for the speakers list.
Point of order.
Okay, yeah, no, sorry, that passed.
Greg?
Okay, the next amendment then.
Greg.
Yep.
Point of order.
Yep.
What was the count? Vote.
Yeah, it was at least 35 against, 28 for. I stopped counting at 35.
I'd like to make a motion on 4.1 composition, which is still up for discussion.
Sure, yeah, it is. Could we do that after the other amendments?
Yep.
Just proceed in order. Bart was next. Bart, do you want to discuss and motivate for your motion? Actually, I'll get a seconder for Bart's motion too. Could you just explain what it is first?
This is a really simple one to add the ability to teleconference to committees.
Okay. Seconder, Dan. Okay, Bart.
Yeah, I think that you should be able to teleconference into committee work. It means you can meet more often and make it simpler for individuals to be able to contribute to the committees they've been assigned to.
Okay, thanks, Bart. Any discussion on that motion? Yes.
We don't know what the amendment is.
Thank you. That was absolutely the right thing to say. It is adding language to 6.8. Greg, I emailed it to you. Oh, those aren't connected? Sure. So, sorry, this will take me a second to pull up.
I can't edit it. Just click it.
All right, so yeah, B, it added that 6.5 be amended to add another section that says committee
One sec,
meetings
Bart.
may be held.
One sec, Bart.
Mar-
Sorry.
Mark, just wait.
Oh, sure.
I'm
Oh,
gonna
sorry.
try and type things up
Yeah,
here.
no, so be added to,
Wait.
yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, committee meetings may be held. Oh, she's still pulling it up. The light bulb.
Okay.
Yeah, so be it resolved that 6.5 be added to add section J. Committee meetings may be held by in person or via teleconference at discretion of the chair.
Point of information, there's two 6.5s.
Yeah, I was going to mention that. This should go on the first 6.5 standing committee meetings. Yeah, that's why I was really confused off the hop too. But yeah, as distributed, this would go on to the first 6.5 standing committee
Bart,
meetings.
can you confirm that that's correct up there?
Committee meetings may be held in person or via teleconference at the discretion of the chair. Yep.
Okay, thank you, Bart. Is everyone clear now on the motion?
I don't know how to spell discretion.
Okay, so any other discussion on it?
DISCRETION.
Okay, all those in favor of this motion? Yes.
I wanted to ask if there'll be a restricted number of times people could add by teleconferences, or is it going to be open? Like, will there be a number? So, like, you could only join in, like, you could only join in to teleconferencing 4 times, or like 5 times. Would there be a restricted number to it?
Bart, can you clarify that?
Okay.
No, as envisioned, this would be whenever you need to, you can join in, and if the process was being abused, the chair could nix the ability to the review of whoever would review the committees.
Okay, thanks, Bart. Any other discussion or questions on it? Yes.
Can we tack on something just to fix the numbering in that section while we're working on section 6?
No, I pulled.
Kaylee, do you have a response to that?
Hi, yeah, any kind of there's also a typo, like those kinds of non-substantial amendments will just be made when we reformat the bylaws. So the numbering problem, there's one reference, a committee spelling error, those kinds of things don't need to have an amendment. We'll fix them when we make the bylaws into a document that looks pretty.
Michael.
Just question on that. It said maybe held in person or via teleconference. Is that the whole meeting would be held, or that a person actually is attending in person or via teleconference?
Bart, I would interpret that as attending.
Yeah. Then you need to put attending in there because how it can be read the other way.
Bart?
Yeah, as far as I know, if the meetings are held in person or via teleconference, then you should be able to attend via teleconference. But if you would like to amend the language, I would be amenable to that.
Okay, because I was just asking I felt that what your intention was for somebody that was attending it, so therefore it should have been noted, or else then all our committee meetings could just be held by phone and no one has to leave their house.
Yeah.
Okay, any other discussion? Yeah, John.
I don't necessarily think that's necessary. The place I can see as being the most useful is that the agricultural representatives might always phone in because they study in Truro. I don't want to create that level of like stigma, like, oh, that person didn't show up. There's sometimes good reasons. There's sometimes good reasons like people don't do that. I don't think we need to separate. Like, for example, with the Senate meetings, there's people that teleconference in all the time that's never recorded. I think it's fine just the way it is. Either you're at the meeting, paying attention and voting, or you're not. Simple as that.
Okay, seeing no other hands, we'll proceed to a vote. Sorry, Michael? Well, ultimately, it would be at the discretion of the interpreter. Okay, seeing no other discussion, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the amendment, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Motion passes. I believe next on the list was Bart. You again? Was it? No? Yeah, Bart, we'll go to Amherst and we'll go back to yours after if that's okay. Just
Yeah, that's fine.
Yeah. Amher.
Okay, my problem was with the equity seats, the civic community representative.
What section? On my second plot.
Section 4.1H. Oh, can everyone hear me like this? Okay. My problem is this. This setup actually screams tokenism. We have a lot more. For example, I'll just talk about international students because I represent international students. There are over 15% of international students on campus right now, and it's projected to be 20% over the next 4 years. I think only having one seat that's equal to 5% of the vote. I think that's not fair for international students, and I think if we need more input from the international students, we need to have fair representation. Right now, this setup screams tokenism. We would say we have one international student on the council. I think we need to work more on that. And also Aboriginal students, Black students, women students. That does not make sense to me. I think we need to address this, and I think we need to have some sort of a system where we address these equities.
Okay, thanks, Amher. Could you specifically address the amendment you'd like to make?
I would like to make that these seats will be given by, I don't know the exact wording, but it would be according to the representation in the student population. So, for example, if we have 15% international students or 20%, we would have 20%.
But I do need a specific amendment from you.
Can anyone think of something that I can say?
Okay, Amher, why don't you come up with one? We'll go back to Bart's, come up with specific wording, and then hopefully in the next 5 minutes we can dispose of that. Bart, so that was your other amendment that you'd like to make?
Sure. Okay, I'm just going to bring it up because it's a little bit longer. If you want to read it and type it like that.
Yeah, sure.
Sure. So the motion is to be it resolved that bylaw 12 be added to the proposed bylaw amendments.
Okay, wait, sorry. I'm just gonna.
Yeah, I'm gonna read it for them and then maybe get a seconder.
It's bylaw 12.
Yeah. So be it further resolved that 12.1 be added, reading the union shall not join any external group that proposes to charge fees to either the union or its members if the group's bylaws, policies, constitution, or any governing documents would prevent that union from ceasing membership, or prevent the union from ceasing membership through a process outlined in the union's own constitution. Be it further resolved that bylaw 12.2 be added, reading the union shall be able to terminate membership in any external organization through a majority vote at a general meeting.
Is that it?
Yes.
Okay, so I'll get a seconder while Kathleen types that up. Corlin? Okay, Bart, if you could motivate for it.
Cool. So this is basically just keeping in what used to be in our constitution that prevents the university students' union from joining an external advocacy group, a la Canadian Federation of Students, CASA, or Student NS, if we would not be able to leave that group at a annual general meeting. To point out the importance of this, I invite you to look through the minutes, because at one of the last general meetings, we actually were able to leave Student Nova Scotia when it was discovered that there was a whole bunch of weird, corrupty things happening. And we were able to do that because we had specific language that allowed us to set our own policy on when we stay with a group and when we leave a group. So I think that language is very important to maintain, to make sure that we don't get locked into an organization in the long term that we lose faith in or that is not doing good work for our members and for the school at large.
Thank you, Bart. Could I have someone who could speak against the motion, and we'll rotate that way? You want to speak against it? Sure. Yeah.
Just one thing towards that is that by adopting this, and my only concern with it is that it would effectively unallow us to make any sort of contract commitments with external groups that could not be terminated within one council meeting, because any external groups could effectively be any external contracts that the DSU would have outside of the university. And basic proponent of contract laws that you can have predetermined times.
Thank you. Corlin, sorry, you were on the speakers list as well?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, that's okay. We'll just balance it after the fact.
I'd like to support this motion because I don't think that it's smart for our union to get caught in anything that if the student body decides that we should leave, that we wouldn't be able to leave based on other bylaws in that group. I think that this allows students to be part of the associations and leave associations when appropriate, instead of getting us in place where our students don't want to be a member of a society and we are stuck being a member and paying fees to the society.
Thanks, Carlin. I have John next, and then Aaron.
I still need to see the full wording, so I might have more to say in the video. Sorry, I haven't seen the full wording yet, so soon I might have more comment. Please. Sorry, so my name is John. The way the Societies Act works is that once you're an organizational member of another organization, you are bound by those bylaws, regardless of what the organization is, regardless of whether you pay dues. So when you're actually joining an organization as an organization, you're only bound by your own bylaws at the time. So as the DSU, as an independent organization, is not bound by any external advocacy organization's bylaws currently. So in the joining process, we would only follow our own policy. If they say you need a referendum to join, and we say AGM to join, all we need is the AGM. But once you're in, regardless of the organization, you have to follow both your own bylaws and their bylaws. They are legally binding. So this would effectively be any external organization. We're part of coalitions and organizations beyond the 3 organizations which have been referenced, CFS, CASA, and Students Nova Scotia. These examples include the Post-Secondary Education Coalition, which is a coalition of students, faculty, and staff organizations. If you wanted to do something like join the Canadian Youth Climate Coalition, or we wanted to join as an organizational supporter of the Canadian Centre for Policy Alternatives, like a research think tank, these bylaws would apply. I'm not sure what would actually prevent us from joining them, so I'm not too sure what it would do. But generally speaking, we're saying external group, only referring to 3 specific organizations. I think this can be much better resolved through policy, which we can add something to the bylaws. For example, I would require a standing policy on specific organizations to exist, but I think it's a much more appropriate place in the bylaws, because this wouldn't actually prevent us from joining organizations, specifically those 3 organizations. But in that context, where it wouldn't prevent us from joining, I don't see the point of the motion, to be totally honest.
Thanks, John. Sorry, you had a motion you wanted to make? Okay. So next up, we have 2 for, 2 against. Aaron, were you going to be speaking for or against? For? Okay. Go ahead. Thanks, John.
Okay, so I'd like to speak for the motion, mainly because I would like to remind everyone in the room of the case that happened at Cape Breton University, their student union. They had some similar issues in their bylaws. They were part of an external advocacy group. The student membership voted to, I guess, leave the group, but because of the wording that Bart had, they were unable to, because this external advocacy group went against the union's own constitution. So I feel like a bylaw like this would allow us, or would protect us from what happened at CBU. So.
Okay, next.
And they got billed for a $3 million lawsuit. So.
Okay, thank you. Next up, I have Dylan, and are you going to be speaking? You're good. Okay, and then the person next to him. Yeah, Jasper. Were you going to be speaking for or against? I'm not sure. Okay.
Thank you. My name is Jasper. My only concern with this is I think external advocacy can be beneficial. I understand there have been problems with that in the past. I'm just concerned that a body of this size, representing a school of this size, making the decision perhaps too rashly and without sufficient oversight. That is my only concern. I don't know if this puts me in the pro or the con right now. I'm still deciding. No question.
Thank you. Okay. Seeing no other discussion, if there's someone that wants to speak against it specifically, we do have a spot for one more, but I don't see anyone. So we'll move to a vote. Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead. Is that you're speaking against it?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I echo John's thoughts that this probably won't protect the union from what people think it will. And it was kind of a holdover from our bylaws, which were written a long, long time ago. and I'm not sure that it's any more relevant in our new constitution than it would be just in policy.
Okay, we'll proceed to a vote now. The speakers list has been exhausted. All those in favor of this amendment, everyone's clear what it is, first of all? All those in favor, please raise your placards. Okay, I have 31 for. All those opposed, please raise your placards. Okay, so I have 22, so the motion does pass then. Next up, Amber, were you ready?
Okay, so I'm proposing an amendment to 4.1G and 4.1H. 4.1G would say a minimum of 12 faculty representatives with additional members to be allocated by proportion of enrollment with a maximum of 2 per faculty.
Yeah, sorry, if you could
Can
say.
you do it a lot slower, just so I can type it out? Thanks.
And actually, if you have a copy, if you could bring it up too.
It's handwritten in my handwriting.
Okay, just read it nice and
Just
slow.
slow.
Okay. A minimum of 12 faculty representatives. With additional members to be allocated by proportion of enrollment with a cap of 2 per faculty. That's for 4.1G and for 4.1H.
It's for both of them?
This is for G.
Sorry. Thank you.
Yeah, and then H. A minimum of 7 community representatives with 1 representative from each of the following communities and with additional members by proportion of students.
Yeah, sorry, Amber, if you could slow it down again.
Sorry.
It's okay. A minimum of 7 community representatives?
With 1 representative from, with additional members to be allocated by proportion of student enrollment. And a cap of 2 per community group. Proportional enrollment.
For community?
Yeah. This way, every faculty will get 13.
Kathleen, you good?
Yeah, I'm great.
Okay. So do I have a seconder for that motion? Casey? Okay. Amber, do you want to motivate for it now?
Can you get your Zan's mic? Yeah.
The reason why I propose this amendment is because there are some faculties that will not be represented under the current system. For example, the management and the commerce students. Right now, we don't have a commerce, while they are actually much bigger than the management program in the row. And then we have the international students who represent almost 20% of the students, and we only have 1 seat. That's actually less than 5% of in the current system. So this way, we would have equal representation from everyone, that the guaranteed minimum, and then any student group who has more students can actually have the more reps. I encourage everyone to vote if you agree with it, and thank you.
Thanks, Amber. Next, I have Rhiannon. Are you going to be speaking for or against? Rhiannon? Are you going to be speaking for or against? Against? Okay.
Yeah, I'm against this. It undoes the work of trying to make council more concise in general. Also, the point of commerce and management, it's not a management student position. It's a faculty of management, which includes commerce. So a commerce student could get that. Yeah, I disagree with both of these amendments. I think it's just kind of backtracking.
Okay, so I have a speakers list going. Alexandra, are you going to be speaking for or against? Against, okay.
I'm just going to echo the same thoughts. This would essentially double the council, and we're working really hard to kind of minimize the positions. And it's not just international students, like women students are half of the entire university. I'm sure students living in residence are higher than 20%. So I think it's really important to not double the size of council when we're trying to minimize it.
Thanks, Alger. I'm just going to warn everyone, we do have a long speakers list. We're probably going to exhaust it, given the 3-3. The opportunity does exist to extend it, but we'll wait until we get there, okay? Next up, I have Michael. Are you going to be speaking for or against, Michael? Rhea, you're next. Michael? Who? Okay.
As much as I would like to be for it, because I believe that the whole school is underrepresented in different places with Indigenous, Black, gay, lesbian, and international students, unfortunately, it's not something that is logistically possible. How many international students consider themselves Black? So therefore, you just combine two sections. So then kind of what breakdown would you use to find your members for allocation? And there's too much crossover. I understand where you're going with it, and I really wish we could come up with a way, but to do it that way or to have it allocated by those sections, because you have people that are of color that are queer or gay or lesbian, and then so there's too much overlap in the individual things for, I think, it to function properly.
Okay, so just a moment. Do I have a motion? Could I have a motion, because that's 3 against now, to extend by 2 more speakers each? Okay, sorry, Callahan. Seconded, Aaron. Is there any opposed to that? By 2 more speakers each? Okay. Rhea, you're going to be speaking for or against? Okay, that's going to be the last against for a while. I do need some fors. Rhea? Oh, yeah, and sorry, one moment. Corlin, you did have a question. Go ahead.
Point of information.
Just wave the mic.
In terms of faculty representation being allocated by proportion of enrollment, do you have an idea which faculties this would impact given current enrollment levels?
Is there anyone that could answer that? Can you answer that? John? Yeah.
These are estimates off the top of my head, not factual necessarily, but I would assume that you would have 1 rep per faculty or equity constituency, with the following exceptions, which would have 2. Arts and social science, engineering, graduate studies, health professions, management, science, international students, resident students, and women.
Thanks, John.
So I
Rhea?
think that's 35?
Okay, Rhea. Sorry, over there. Yeah.
So yeah, my name is Rhea. The difficulty I have with this one is just the logistics, basically, of organizing this, because if you're going with proportions, how do you decide at which point you're rounding up to 2 and rounding down to 1, first of all? The second issue I have is I'm just speaking on behalf of law students. We're already a small faculty and we only have 1 representation. So, and we also have people who are in MBAs and MPAs. So like, I don't know how much would be achieved by having 2 members versus 1, essentially.
Thanks, Rhea. So we do need a few for it now. Yeah, Angela, and then Casey, and then Amber. Oh, no, sorry, Casey behind. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, so I understand the amount of, like, because this does increase council, but it does, and I understand that's what we're trying to slim down council on, but it only adds about 9 people. And I think there's a lot of disappointment from people who represent larger faculties, because we do make up a significant proportion of the population here at Dal, and I think that means that we should be allowed I guess a stronger voice, a more amplified voice. And with the situation of community representatives, like, I check off a lot of boxes, and I think a lot of people do, but I don't think identity politics will be an issue here, as big as an issue as it was raised earlier. And definitely the specific number needs to be reached. This was a motion that was like drafted in like 2 minutes, and because of the dissatisfaction we have with the current bylaws or the current proposed bylaws.
Thanks, Angela. Next up, I have Casey.
Yeah, Angela basically just said everything I was going to say. I also, so I'll just reiterate that. I think the faculties, like, for example, science is really big, and it just doesn't seem right that we would have the same representation of, like, now I'm just going to use law because, sorry. And also, can I just ask a quick question, because I didn't want to interrupt. Could we vote separately on the two, or is it going to be one?
We can.
Just 'cause
The meeting's going on for a while now. I'm inclined to be conscious of that. Yeah.
Okay. I mean, they're very different.
So next up, I have Amber. Yes.
Just with regards to this, I know in terms of selection of these. Sorry. Just in terms to this, I know in terms of the selection of the DSU council members is slightly different for faculty. I believe with the Faculty of Arts, it's selected with...
Was there a question?
Yeah, I'm just wondering how the process works here, because Commerce and Management would normally select theirs individually. Like, how would the allocation be allotted in terms of selection of those individuals who would take the roles?
Is there someone that can answer that? Dylan?
Point of order.
Yes.
Wasn't Amr recognized before the point of information?
To answer the question, because Amber is on the speakers list. Yeah. You'll wait? Okay.
So for selection, it's done by transition this year. So right now, every program faculty, so for management, say Commerce and Management would each put the reps forward, and council would decide. Next year, we'll be transitioning to a system by which every student in the Faculty of Management will vote directly through the elections for that representative, which is a better system overall.
I'm really going to encourage this. There's quite a few people that want to speak. There's been quite a few perspectives that have been exchanged here. Amber, I know you're up next, and that balances out at 4 and 4, and then I would encourage that we move to a vote at that point. Amber?
Okay, I'm just going to answer Michael's point. We already have the overlap. We have Jimena here. She's a women's student, and she's international. It depends on what your job is, the council, that will determine what you're doing there. No overlap. We already have overlap in all the positions that we have. So I don't think that's going to be a problem. Again, I want to say that we're only adding 9 seats. And not every university, but a lot of universities are using this proportion of enrollment. So
Yeah, state your point.
Just a point of information is that we don't know how
Could you
many
state your
we've
name?
added. Rebecca. So you can't say 9 if we don't know.
about 9. So I think it's not.
Well, no. Is it a point of order, or is it like a rebuttal to what he's saying? Because they're different things.
I'm just checking that the amendment does say that we would be adding up to 12 and up to 7, so up to 19.
Okay, so that's not a point of order. Amber, you can return with the floor.
We added that it's going to be maximum 2 per faculty, so we can't have more than that. So if your faculty has 30% of the students, you're not going to have 5 reps. It's only 2 per faculty, a maximum. So it's going to add about 9 students. I don't think that's a big problem. I don't think that's a big number that would disrupt the council structure as we are proposing to have. And we're not the only university that has this system. I think it's important that we have proportional representation that is fair for everyone.
Thanks, Amber. I do think we should proceed to a vote at this point.
Point of information.
Yeah, say your point.
For the next discussions, what is the difference between having a rebuttal point and,
If they have a spot on the speakers list and want to speak to the content and the substance of something, then they can. Otherwise, a point of information would not be the appropriate place to be speaking to the content or substantive questions.
Greg, can you clarify what a point of information is?
Yeah, a point of information is you have an inquiry that needs to be answered, and an actual inquiry, not phrased as an inquiry, to go forward in your discussions.
About procedure?
No, that's a point of order. Yeah.
Call it a question.
Yeah, sure, and I'll do that myself, actually. I do have the discretion to do that. Is it a point of order or a privilege? Motion to sever the two? Okay, that's to divide these two questions. Do I have a seconder for a motion to split? We're not going to have any more discussion on it, though, Bart. Seconded, Aaron. Okay, so we're just voting on these separately. The first, yeah. What's that? No.
We have to vote to pass.
Oh, sorry, you're right. We haven't voted yet. All those in favor of splitting the question, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. We're going to be voting now on the motion, which is this. All those in favor, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion fails. Next up, we had one more amendment, if I'm not mistaken. Jeremy, and then it's going to be Corlin. Was there a point? Okay, Jeremy first, and then Jeremy, state your amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to address 4.1, membership. I'd like to acknowledge that the governance review has done a fantastic job of reviewing our governance system and recommending a process to smooth things out. However, I also want to highlight that the governance review does not review the representation or best practices in representation. It actually reviews best processes for representation, which is one of the reasons we're having this discussion here. And knowing that our representation isn't satisfactory as written in this motion, I would like to motion that 4.1 be the composition of council be as it was in the previous constitution.
Do I have a seconder for that? Corlin? So I need a specific amendment first. Sorry, Jeremy. Do you have one? Yes, point of order. Say your point.
I believe that if you want to have 4.1 be like it was in the previous constitution, you should just vote down 4.1 when we get to the vote on it.
Sorry, say again?
If you want 4.1 to be like it was in the previous constitution, just vote it down when we get to the vote on it, because we have to vote on it separately because it was pulled from the omnibus.
Okay.
Point of information. The motion that we just passed actually started with the existing constitution of the DSU is gone. So currently, if you vote no to this, we have no composition of council.
Okay, sorry, Jeremy, did you have wording for the motion? Yeah. Yeah.
All the sections that weren't this. So that means that, and I don't. So section 4, Constitution still stands because we pulled out 4.
Yes, I do. Can I email that to you?
The current union bylaw 4 be repealed and replaced by the draft bylaw 4 circulated. Yeah, is what it should be.
Can I email that?
Could you bring it up here?
Yep.
And or say it nice and slow.
Yeah.
Jeremy, if you could bring it up, that'd be great. Thank you. What time is council supposed to say?
Corlin, did you have another amendment?
Yes.
What is it?
It's, like, I just have a lot of amendments on my keyboard.
Okay.
It's just one amendment. It's an amendment to.
So you have one amendment left.
It's amendment to 4.1. It
Okay.
It's just so that.
So we're going to still be discussing 4.1, right? We're still discussing 4.1 upcoming. So why doesn't Jeremy just amend that? Okay. Jeremy, could we do this after? Yeah. Okay. Katie, do you have something written now? Okay. Could you write it down then? Or at least bring it up here and... Okay,
She needs a
come up.
mic.
Just so I can type it up. What section is it?
Point of information.
State your point.
So, since we pulled out a few clauses or bylaws, do we have to, at the end of all of this process, vote them as they're amended into the...
Yes.
Okay.
Is there anyone you know that can share council tonight? I don't think we're going to be able to.
If you wanted to, so Katie's is up. If you wanted to motivate, can she do that now?
Yeah. So Katie, could you just say what the motion is? Just read it out. I'll get a seconder, and then you can motivate.
Hi, everybody. My name is Katie Douglas. I was the Deputy Returning Officer for the Elections Committee this year, and I just wanted to speak to the fact that it's really important to have the Chief Returning Officer sitting on the Elections Committee, because oftentimes they have a better idea than anyone else about the exact situation of what's going on than the rest of the Elections Committee members, because they oversee everything. So not having them able to sit on the Elections Committee doesn't really make sense. And that's why I've proposed this amendment.
Okay. Do I have a seconder for the motion? Rhiannon? Do you need any further motivation? Okay.
Point of order.
Yes.
Should that be 9.5 instead of 9?
I think it's just
9.4.
It's just 9. We know where it is. Yeah. We know that.
Okay, discussion on that? We'll proceed to a vote then, seeing none. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Motion passes. Jeremy, you ready?
Okay, so Jeremy's is really long, so I'm just gonna receive it through Facebook chat. If that's possible.
No more. No more. No more amendments at this point. I gotta cut it off. I can't. We're not gonna get through everything tonight. I'm sorry, it was a year-long process that we went through. There were a lot of opportunities along the way.
Would it be a good idea to plug off the...
Guys, and I'm also just going to be clear about this. I'm going to rule any more amendments out of order at this point. We've had a year-long process for this, and I understand people's ability to bring things up now, but I don't think it's the best venue for it. I understand it's possible, and I respect the fact that a number have been brought up, but we need to move on with the meeting.
Thank you for your patience, team. Oh God. Control.
reformatting. Oh my god. Just give it a sec.
Okay, do I have a seconder for this, first of all? Jeremy explained briefly what it was before. Corlin? Jeremy, do you want to, I know you motivated a bit before, do you want to just kind of bring it back into everyone's understanding what's going on here?
Yeah, this really big chunk of text is actually our composition of council as it existed in the 2014 composition, less the Senate representatives who are now appointed by faculties, and less, actually I think that's it. You can amend that. And the reason I mention this is because we're not satisfied with the representation as it is written currently in the Constitution. This representation has been working effectively, and I don't think this should stay forever. But I think the key and important part is that we don't have an assessment or review of an appropriate representation process. And despite governance looking at the most effective processes, it doesn't necessarily look at the most representational processes, as has been noted by all of the conversations we've been having about composition. So with that in mind, my motion is to return to a similar representation that we have at council currently, in the hopes that we can review this in more depth with maybe more input around representation in the future.
Next up, I have Dan on the speakers list. What's the point of information?
I was just wondering if this, because we've already passed bylaw 9 about how we elect the new council, I was wondering if this is compatible with what we've already passed today. Because there are representatives on here that are not faculty representatives, and under our new bylaw constitution, in the bylaw 9, it sets out how we elect our new council. So I'm just wondering if this is, if we can even pass this and still have a functioning set of bylaws.
Can you pass me the ink there? Sorry, Kaylee, could you, I'd like to ask Kaylee to speak for it. She was on the committee.
I think that it would be fine in the case of where there's commerce and management. Those would both be considered faculty level societies, even though they don't represent everyone in their faculty. I mean, like, someone could challenge it when the election happened, but I don't think that that's a reason for, people should debate the merits, and if the merits warrant it, then cool.
Okay, Dan, I have next up on the speakers list, speaking against it.
Great, so, yes, so I'm speaking against. I take the points that Jeremy brought forward, and I think that they're valid and something that we can work on the next year, and something that we can work into the bylaws or into policy, a complete review of the effectiveness of the size of council or the type of council. I would like to speak to something that he said. He said that this council is effective. I would like to just say that that was something that was repeatedly highlighted, that this council is not effective, the size is not effective. That was one of the main reasons why we underwent a governance review. Because time and time again, years and years and years show that this size, like the council meetings have a tendency to drag on. We had an excellent chair this year, so our council meetings were, around the table, our council meetings were concise for the most part, but I mean, even then, still, we almost maxed out twice. But the way, the old way, I mean, it was identified as poor and non-functional. By many, many folks, so that's why we did this.
Thanks, Dan. I have Corlin next. Are you going to be speaking for or against?
I am speaking for the motion. I think that the way that council is currently made up is good and effective. I think that if in previous years it was ineffective, then you should hire a more successful and more effective chair, because the meetings this year have run very smoothly with a chair that's very strict to the rules. I think that this allows for people to have proportionate representation when needed and different faculty representation when appropriate. I don't think the way to have a more successful democracy is to make less people be heard and advocated for. So the current council makeup is what it should be.
Thanks, Corlin. I have Michael next.
Okay, first of all, going back to the old way actually has less representation. You get rid of the disability chair is the main thing. That has been fully lacking from this school for a long time. And I'm sorry that, everybody that walks doesn't think about it, but those of us that have trouble with that do. So it's actually not very functional for people with disabilities. There's a lot of things that weren't addressed this year because of that missing. Also, the way that it was set up last year, there was, because of the too many, like you're talking about, it'll be more representation, it puts it back to a heavy board with 2 or 3 people representing one group and only one representing another group. So there's no way that you could actually make that a logical statement. It puts it right back to where we have too many for one and not enough for another. So everything that we struck down because of the other one we said no for, you'd have to say no for this too.
So next up I have Bart.
Before I speak, is there anything below this?
Just some more faculties.
Okay,
And
so.
some community reps.
Okay, so there are community reps
Sorry,
for.
so I don't know how to.
No, that's fine. I just wanted to check before I spoke out of turn. Yeah, so I am speaking against this motion. I understand why individuals in the Faculty of Commerce would feel like they wanted representation and how it might be different from the Faculty of Management. But as somebody who represents a smaller organization, I can't see why, when it comes to the DSU as a whole, more students should mean more representation. We're looking later about one of the arts letters to discuss why the allocation of funds based on students has been hurting the faculty. At the DSU, we talk about high-level things, which means that if you are the management rep, then you're representing both management and commerce students. As the law rep, I represent health law, maritime law, environmental law, commercial law, civil litigation. I represent a ton of different disparate groups, all of whom have different ideals, drives, and needs. But going back to the way the board was isn't effective. I've sat on it for 2 years, and last year we went overtime every meeting. And I also think that it breeds apathy with board members, and people aren't as engaged when they think their vote doesn't count for as much.
Thanks, Bart. I have a point of information. Point information.
Yeah, just to speak to the Faculty of Management, he was speaking about separate disciplines in a law degree. We are entirely separate programs, and it's a Bachelor of Management degree.
What's the question?
Bachelor, it's point of information.
It's a question, though. A point of information is a question.
I mean, it's a point of clarification. Point of privilege?
No, I'm not going to recognize that. Okay, Amber, sorry, were you speaking for or against it? Okay, and then the speakers list is capped at that unless there's a motion to
I
extend.
think to answer Michael's concern, which is actually legitimate, we can add 1 chair for disability groups. So if, where's Jeremy? Do you agree with that?
You say amend and add a seat.
Okay, we can amend to add 1 chair from the disability community students. 1 member.
You want a motion to amend?
Yeah. Motion to amend the amendment.
Yeah.
By adding 1 representative from the disability group, student disability community. I don't know the exact wording. Michael? Where's Michael?
Do I have a seconder for that amendment? Corlin? Amber?
We don't have numbers to verify whether it's just 1. Like there's 2 for international because of the amount of students. You don't have numbers to base that on. Like right now we're going on variables we don't know about, so I'm not comfortable with that. I think there should be 1 there, but we don't know. It's when it was smaller, it made it equal to because there was a smaller council. That is just an unwieldy beast. Trust me, I've been there for 2 years, and that will not give it a voice.
Okay.
I just still want to add it still, so.
Okay. Sorry, I do have a seconder for that amendment. Amber, could you briefly motivate for it? We'll have someone speak against it, and then we'll vote on it.
The reason why I brought this up, because the point was brought up that this council, the council as it existed last year did not represent all the community groups on campus. So I think if we add that, that would address this concern. I'm pretty sure it's not the perfect setup right now, but I hope this is something that everyone here agrees on.
Thank you. Aaron, I know you've had your hand up for a bit. Did you want to speak on this amendment specifically? Okay, and against it? Okay, perfect. Yeah. Go ahead.
So I'm going to agree with Michael. You know, this motion as it stands, to me, there's no proportional representation. There's no voice for disability, people with disability, LGBTQ, Aboriginal, you name it, all the equity seats. The only equity seats that do have a voice, because in this motion they have 2 seats, are people of residency and international community. I think personally, you know, Dalhousie Aboriginal community, we have the lowest percentage of Aboriginal people probably across the country, 2%. So why aren't Aboriginal people coming to our school? Because there's no representation within the university. There's none. There's no voice. So, you know, I think the new amendment would give that voice, would make it more appealing for Aboriginal people, would probably bring our Aboriginal student population up to the national average, which is about 4 or 5%. You know, we want to bring students here, not push them away. And I think this amendment would push people away if they knew about it, specifically Aboriginal people. That's what I'm speaking for.
Thanks, Aaron. So we've had 1 for and 1 against. I'm going to call the question. We're going to proceed to a vote on the amendment to the amendment. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment, please raise your placards. Okay, all those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. We're back to discussion on the amendment now. We did exhaust the speakers list for 3 for and 3 against, unless there's a motion to extend.
Call to question.
Sure, call the question. We're going to vote now on this amendment proposed by Jeremy. Is there a point of information or?
Where does this leave us on members at large?
On members at large? Yeah, microphone, thank you. Okay, just state the question again for the microphone. It was that.
Just where does this motion leave us on members at large? Because I know they've been eliminated in the new bylaws.
And the answer is?
It keeps them.
Okay. So, yeah, point of information?
So with these, are we still appointing people to our own council with votes? Like, is our body appointing people to have a vote on our own body?
It would do it that way.
Sorry, I don't have an answer for you. I'm not an expert on the new bylaws yet.
We didn't draft a different way to appoint members at large, so the only system to appoint them would be through council, where council is appointing members to its own body, which was one of the biggest problems that we identified.
Okay, Dan, that answers your question? Okay. All those in favor of this amendment, please raise your placards. I have 26. All those opposed? I have 34. The motion fails. So, I believe that was it for amendments, if I'm not mistaken. Yes. I'm sorry, Corlin. It is getting. Yeah. Call a point of order first. Point of order? Yeah. State your point.
I don't think that we should cut off amendments right now. A lot of people are unhappy with the proposed council structure. If we vote it down, then it seems like there's no council structure, as well as other amendments. People have the opportunity at the AGM. I don't know why we would not allow people to make the changes that they think are going to be the most effective for the coming year.
I'm just allowed a chance to respond. I'm going to kind of defer on that. Rhiannon, was there a specific point, or? I just wanted to respond. We proceed to a vote on challenge the chair. Yeah. I kind of made my point before, just a time consumption thing. It's not something that, if your will is otherwise, that's fine, and I'll leave it at that. All those in favor of overruling.
Point of information.
What's the point
What are we voting on?
We're voting on whether to challenge the chair and to continue discussing amendments. My ruling was to not. Everyone's clear on that? Okay, so all those in favor of overruling my decision, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, so the motion fails. Moving on with the agenda then. Okay. Next up on the agenda is, yeah, sure, let's do a count. Yeah, so we have about 50, so we don't have quorum. So yeah, the meeting has to adjourn.
Isn't there opportunity to
Yeah, maybe. We'll recess for 10 minutes to see if we can get members. We are 25.
How long is the recess?
We'll say 15 minutes.
call 10?
And also, don't leave in the recess.
I need to go outside.
Two more people just came in.
Okay, are they not counted? I didn't give myself. Yeah.
We have braces on. Okay, lock the doors.
Okay, so the meeting's back to order. We do have quorum now. If everyone can take their seats. We're going to proceed on, and we're going to proceed to make sure.
Can the room have order, please?
So the amendments are done with as from before, and so what we're going to do is to move a motion to approve either the amendments or the final versions of what changes were made.
I think we should have a motion now to approve everything. Sorry, Dylan.
And amendments.
Yeah, I just want some clarity on what the kind of everything was there. Yeah. Yeah. Can you speak? Can you speak to that?
So I'd like to make a motion to accept the bylaws as amended in this meeting.
Great.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thanks, Dylan. Seconded, Kathleen. We'll just move to. We'll have a quick discussion. Yeah. No, there's no other amendments. We're voting on the motion now to approve everything. Any discussion on that?
Point of information.
Yeah.
Can you read out what it is as it stands?
It's all the same bylaw changes as circulated, along with what are the changes now? Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, no, Greg should keep his and you should take his in.
Hey y'all, I'm John. It's just for all the new people in the room. There's some viewers watching on screen at home, so instead of just yelling, no matter how loud you are, people on the microphone can't hear you, so please just wait for the microphone to come to you. Thank you.
Thanks, John. So could we get a cap on all the amendments that were approved? Kathleen, do you have those?
Yeah, sorry, I do. I do. This amendment was passed on external groups, so we're adding a new bylaw 12 for all the newcomers in the room. Everyone see that? Do you want me to read it, or we're good? Cool. And also bylaw 6.5, the first one, part J, just an added amendment that committee meetings may be held in person or via teleconference at the discretion of the chair of that meeting. These did not pass. 9B did. This is in the elections committee, the elections bylaws. So the chief returning officer shall not be an executive officer, councillor, committee member, or employee of the union for the duration of their term, except for sitting on the elections committee. And those are all of the amendments that passed.
Thanks, Kathleen. Everyone's clear? I'm going to forego the discussion because we have discussed each of these amendments individually as well as the motion as a whole. So that being said, all those in favor of the motion to approve the bylaws as amended? All opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next on the agenda then. Thank you for everyone's patience. So next on the agenda we have new business motion on... Yes. State your point.
When we talked about the omnibus and severing, we stated that the second part was also going to be discussed. The motion what the appointments are going to look like this year.
That's correct, yeah. Is there any opposition to discussing that?
Where is that?
That's the second be it resolved clause. Seeing none, I'll take it adopted by unanimous consent.
Oh no, I want to bring something up on that.
Okay.
The only issue is that I've heard it two ways about who is going to be involved in the appointment of the quality seats. So I have appointment information as to who is going to be appointing the equity seats for this term.
Is there someone that could answer that point?
If you scroll down, it outlines that. Scroll up a bit. That if it's essentially if a society, if there's a society that represents those equity groups, they will be the one who appoints that person. If there is a multiple societies, then the societies will have to agree. And then if there is no agreement, each will have to appoint one. So what the interpretation of that will likely be that if a society represents the full group, that any societies that represent a subsection of that group would not be considered in the multiple societies. So for example, if there is, the South House has traditionally been the group that appoints the representative for women students, that wouldn't, women in engineering, anyone who is a member of Women in Engineering would also be able to go to a South House meeting to vote on the women students, so that wouldn't be seen as a conflicting group. And then if there's not a society, as is the case with students with disabilities currently, or black students currently, then there would be a process through the nominating committee, which is outlined there.
Okay, thank you, Kaylee. So first of all, we're discussing this. I didn't see any dissent in terms of discussing this again. And so we're going to take the same mover and seconder as the original main motion, since it was a part of it, and we'll proceed to any discussion on that aspect of the question. Katie.
I apologize. I'm going to move to amend this amendment. I'm speaking from the experience of a student from the queer community, as a woman, and as a student with a disability. And I would like to make an amendment that if there is not a society currently representing that community, that the DSU will organize a community meeting for those communities. The reason being, especially for groups like students with disabilities, there are lots of students who fall under that and aren't represented by a society, and I think it's really bad to just arbitrarily assign someone without, like the DSU is supposed to represent students and is supposed to outreach to students, so it should be doing that and be organizing community meetings to elect these students reps rather than arbitrarily assigning people. I would also like to add an amendment that this transition process be the process for electing members to council up until there is a new process approved through a general meeting. The reason being is that we currently don't have policies for electing people to council. So if we were not to make that amendment, we wouldn't have something for next year potentially.
Okay, thanks, Katie. What's the specific amendment then? Do you have wording for it?
Nice
And
and
so the first amendment is, if there's not a society currently representing that community.
A little bit slower, please.
Okay. Representing that community, the DSU shall be responsible for organizing a community meeting where members of that community will nominate their representative.
Okay, do I have a seconder for that? Corey? Proceeding discussion, Michael.
Well, considering right now the two we're talking about, I'm part of both. I actually don't agree with that, and the reasoning is that there is several, as we had already spoken, there's several black groups, and what happens when we elected, like myself, is those groups got together and chose. So just because there's not one over-governing body, so should there be one white chair representative? Like, should there be one over-governing body from over all the white people? Because we got together and voted for people that are our peers. That's what happened. As far as the disability one, I think that because it is a new one, there might be a bit of process to that. So that part I agree with you.
I don't see any other hands, so Katie will go to you. And were you going to vote, or were you going to speak in favor or opposed? In favor? Katie, I'm going to give it to her just because she hasn't spoken yet. So if someone get the microphone. And sorry, if you could say your name too, please.
Yeah, sure. My name is Katie George Jim, and I'm speaking in favor of it just because it facilitates an area in which groups can hold a meeting, whether or not they have the capacity to do it themselves. So,
for example, Aboriginal students, the DNSA, they don't necessarily have the capacity to hold it on their own. So this could encourage students from all types of groups to meet in the student union. So it's not necessarily a group of white students, for example, voting in favor of to elect a black student or an Aboriginal student or a person that's differently abled to this position. It's going to be an area in which people can meet and vote for their representatives to the student union. So I am voting in favor, I believe.
Is there anyone to vote against it, speak against it?
Point of information.
Yeah, what's the point?
Sorry, I was just wondering, is this just for this upcoming year?
Exactly, it's just the transition part of the motion.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm tempted to close the speak list if there's no one else to speak against it. We've heard 2 for, 1 against now. We'll proceed to a vote then. All those in favor of this amendment, everyone's clear, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. So next up, we have a motion from Angela Hu, motion on Faculty of Arts and Science, Social Science budget cuts. That was forwarded with the agenda. It does not need to be read, but do I have a seconder for that? Caitlin? Angela, are you here?
Yeah.
Yeah, can you motivate for that, please?
Yeah, okay, hi. We have a letter, we wrote it, it came out with the other info for this meeting, as well as over there, it's on the blue piece of paper. What is basically going on is that there's been funding cuts on top of funding cuts on top of funding cuts on top of funding cuts, and FAST is slowly losing the ability to operate, and the university refuses to basically change the system in which funds are allocated so that FAST will have a fighting chance. And this is not just the Faculty of Arts and Social Sciences. In the next coming years, URBA, which is enrollment-based budget allocations, will continue to will start affecting other faculties that have previously benefited from it. So we'd really like to get support from the general membership of the DSU in telling the administration that stop cutting funds to academia.
I understand there's a point of order.
Hi, I'd just like to mention that I raised 2 amendments, one of which was not written down because I was told to make 1 amendment and then we come back to the second. So I was wondering when we were coming back to the second amendment for the previous.
Can we deal with that after this motion?
Yes. Are you going to promise me that that'll be, like, you're not
I
going
can promise you, as long as we haven't lost quorum, I will address that point of order after this, yes.
Would anybody like me to read the letter? No.
Okay, so I'll get a speakers list started on Angela's motion. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your placards. Okay, the motion passes. Okay, Katie, so to respond to your point, if you'd like to motion to amend the agenda, it does take for this 2/3 approval. It's not unanimous, but you can absolutely do that. I'm sorry, I thought that was it. Maybe that was my fault, but I did ask for the wording, and I thought that was the comprehensive set of what you wanted to change. So if you could motion to amend the agenda
Okay.
to discuss that again.
I'd like to motion to amend the agenda to talk about the be it resolved clause regarding the transition between to the new bylaw representation format.
Do I have a seconder for that? Corey? And we'll just proceed straight to a vote because it's incidental. All those in favor of amending the agenda to discuss that, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion does pass. So do you have the writing now?
Yes, I do.
Okay.
So I would like to add at the very bottom of this be it resolved clause that this transition policy exists up until there has been a new representation policy approved through AGM.
Can you repeat that?
That this policy will exist up until a new policy has been passed through an AGM.
State your point if someone has a microphone. State your point.
Because we motioned on this, do we not need a motion to reconsider to amend?
It's
Or no?
no, because this was separate. We're doing it again, and actually, it's special rules. It's not unanimous consent. It's 2/3 for general meetings. It is in the rules.
Okay.
Yeah. Thanks. Okay, Dan, did you want to speak to the motion?
I would like to amend the motion, so speak if you can.
Okay, sure. And sorry, Katie, did you have a chance to motivate? That's okay. So Dan, yeah. Did you want to? Yeah, sure. Sorry, Dan. Yeah.
So the reason I'm proposing this is in the election and referenda bylaws, those are bylaw 9, for 9.2 C and D, it says voting for faculty representatives will be determined in accordance with applicable policies, and that's the same for community representatives. Currently, those applicable policies haven't been developed yet. So up until the development of those policies through an AGM, we should have a policy existing, which is this transition policy. Does that make sense? I said policy a lot. I apologize.
Thank you. Yeah, Dan.
I think I would just like to motion to amend, and the amendment, so I don't know if I should speak to it first or amend first. So amendment, instead of, in the last line it says the transition policy exists up until a new policy has been passed through AGM. I would just say transition policy exists up until a new policy has been ratified through council.
Has been ratified.
Because and I only say that because policies are passed through council, not through AGM.
Do I have a seconder for that amendment to the amendment? Rhiannon? And any discussion on it? You want to motivate for it quickly?
Sure. So policies are passed through council, not AGM.
Thanks, Dan.
Well, the motion overall is very important, and I'm in favor of it.
Okay, we'll proceed directly to a vote. I don't see any hands. All those in favor of the amendment to the amendment? Okay, the motion passes. All those opposed? Okay, motion passes. We're back in discussion on the amendment. Are there any speakers that'd like to speak to it as amended? Yes, let's call the question.
One question.
Oh, sorry, Michael. Go ahead.
Because I'm on.
Yeah, you are. You're right. Sorry.
Okay.
Go ahead.
I was just wondering what puts this, with that and with adding that little bit to it, if a society is formed, like I'll use my group, and if by the end of the summer there is a society in place, at the same time you decide to do your pick, like the DSU council decides to put somebody in place, who overrules? Like I could just see something happening in September, which basically may take something away from the group that actually want to do it. And that's not right. That's not right. Again, you're putting that power back in a group a group of people that the representation of the people that they're going to be putting in place, they don't really have representation.
Okay, thanks, Michael. Is there anyone that could address that? I'm not an expert in the new bylaws, so. Yeah, okay. Don't see anyone, unfortunately. Kaylee, yeah? Yeah, just wait for the microphone there.
It would just be at the discretion of council, but at the same time, the society would then have the rights afforded to it to impeach that person that they currently have under. So if you had a society form, they could actually recall that person now because there was a society.
Okay. Any other speakers?
Call it a question.
Yeah, call the question. All those in favor of the motion as amended, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Motion passes. Okay, next up, yeah, Dylan, do you have a point?
Motion to adjourn and refer the rest of the agenda to council.
Okay, there has been a motion to adjourn. Do I have a seconder for it? Yeah, and sorry, what was your name? Okay, and there's no debate on a motion to adjourn? All those in favor of adjourning, please raise your placards. All those opposed? Okay, the motion does not carry. So next up on the agenda, we have the motion for DSU support of LSS convocation date, moved by Jennifer Hand. Do I have a seconder for that? Caitlin? Okay, Jen, if you could motivate for it, please.
Yeah, thanks, guys. So the LSS has historically always had a convocation date in the third week of May, and that's largely been because law students have bar ad courses, and we start articling positions in the summer. And because Dal is a national school, we have students from across the country, so it's not just the Nova Scotia articling and bar dates that we're concerned with. We're actually concerned with all the provinces and territories. As of last year, the university, in a cost-saving measure, condensed all of those convocations into 1 week and moved ours from the third week to the fourth week of May. This is a problem for students from BC who miss their course and students from Nova Scotia who begin their articling jobs. So it forces a lot of our students to make a decision about whether they should come to convocation or whether they should sort of take time off work or take time off the bar course. All of those things are equally as important. Convocation is an important ceremony to all of us, I think, and what we want here today is just support from the general DSU when we go forward to have conversations with the president, with the university, that we have the support of the DSU for that. So I'm happy to take any questions, but that's sort of the gist.
Thanks, Jennifer. Are there questions or anyone speaking to it? Yeah, Yuzan?
We maybe scroll down to the be it resolved clause?
Yes.
In that?
Sorry about that. I'll make it smaller.
Okay, I don't see any hands here. Seeing none, we'll proceed to a vote. All those in favor of the motion? All those opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Next on the agenda, we have the discussion on the Dalhousie Graduate Student Association. That's, yep. Yeah. Discussion on the Dalhousie Graduate Student Association. Karina D'Souza. Is Karina here? Okay, I don't see Karina here yet. Dan? Motion to table, seconded. Corey? All those in favor of tabling it? All those opposed? Okay, so next up, Corey, discussion on solidarity with sexual abuse, sexual assault survivors, excuse me. You have the floor.
And I also emailed you a motion to chair
To me?
DSE.
Okay.
Can you Facebook chat it?
Yes.
So when we get it up, I'm going to raise a motion basically in solidarity. For those of you who haven't heard, Brandon University has been dealing with a sexual assault silencing. So at BU, if you were sexually assaulted and if you reported it to the university, they made you sign a gag order, meaning you're not allowed to talk about the incident to anyone other than a counselor at the university. If you do, you could be faced with suspension or expulsion, which is not cool. So I just wanted to raise a motion to show solidarity with sexual assault survivors and to write an open letter expressing our solidarity and support with sexual assault survivors.
Thanks, Corey. I'm just having problems bringing it up. Bear with me.
On the Facebook here. She made a commercial music video. Have you seen those lip glosses though?
Okay, so Corey, I'll just note that to change the agenda again, we do need to have a motion included at this point. We do need a 2/3 majority for that. I know we had a discussion. What's that? It was a discussion though. It wasn't a motion. Yeah. So could I get a motion to amend the agenda? Caitlin seconded. And sorry, what was your name? Sorry, behind you. Yeah. Yeah. Colleen, thank you. Okay, all those in favor of amending the agenda to include the motion? All those opposed? The motion passes. So, that's it.
Yeah. I'll separate.
Is there discussion on this while we're getting it up?
Was it good?
Separately the be it resolves.
Is that right?
Good? Yeah. Okay.
Is everyone clear on what we're voting on? Okay, I'll proceed to a vote then. All those in favor of this motion? All those opposed? Motion passes. So next up, yep. Motion to amend?
Yeah. Can I have a microphone?
Sorry, the motion? Or?
No,
okay.
not a new one.
I motion to table or stop the executive presentation from happening and instead circulate the PowerPoint we're going to present to our membership through our website. And we will be happy to take questions as in the interest of time.
Seconded. Corey? All those in favor? Motion passes. So we'll proceed to a question and answer period. Yeah. We'll start off with... I'm just looking at the order for council, what we do.
Yeah,
We start with Dan. Dan. Oh, no, sorry, it's questions. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, just like general questions.
Yeah, okay. So if you have a question for the exec, please do so. I'll start a speakers list. I don't see any questions. Seeing none, we'll proceed on, I guess. Yay. Okay, what is next?
Announcements.
Announcements. Are there announcements?
Let's go to council.
John.
This is just in reference to the executive reports that we decided not to give. If anybody has not gotten a copy of the executive report, there are paper copies at the entrance to the door there. You can see in detail what we've been up to for the year. There's also cool graphics. Check it out.
Thanks, John. Any other announcements? Okay, seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn. Danielle, seconded. What was your name? Yeah. Essen? Okay. All those in favor? Meeting is adjourned.